Hey, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. It's the only podcast where we watch every episode of G.I. Joe in sequential order and comment on it Mystery Science style. It's me, your host, Joe Slepsky, and I'm so happy to have you back this week because you're in for a very special treat. For those of you who know the show, who know the G.I. Joe DIC episodes, we are at the football episode. We are at the episode where G.I. Joe and Cobra square off on the football field, in tanks no less. And I have no one in my life that I would love to do it more with. I'd love to break this episode down of football than a real hardcore football fan, a guy that I know socially out here in California. And before I knew that, I very much admired his work. And you do too. I haven't introduced him yet. You know him from a lot of voiceover work. He's been Vandal Savage in like almost every iteration of DC animated stuff. He's played Green Arrow. He's played Hawkman. He's done work on the Saints Row series of video games. On the wonderful Green Lantern cartoon show, he played Saint Walker, the Blue Lantern.
Yes,
correct?
The only Blue Lantern.
The wonderful Green Lantern show that got cut too long, cut too short rather. On Smallville, this is where I realized, oh, this guy's great. He played John Jones, the Martian Manhunter. He played Miles Bennett Dyson on the Sarah Connor Chronicles. You're the creator of Skynet.
Yes.
Yeah. You caused it all to go wrong. And most importantly, I think most of you would probably know him from it's a small show. It's quite popular in the 90s for some reason. A little show called Seinfeld. And he is Mr. Jackie Childs, the lawyer who is very upset that Kramer used the balm.
He's upset about everything.
He's upset about everything. Can I welcome my friend, my super talent, Mr. Phil Morris? Welcome to Joe on Joe.
Oh, Joe, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Oh, man, it's a delight. We've got Mary Jane Watson currently trying to get up in your stuff. She's like, I'm a fan, too.
That's a
I
dog,
used to
by
watch
the way.
Smallville with
That's
my
a dog.
dad.
I have
Like,
to say that because my wife would be listening. She's like,
Oh.
Mary Jane Watson all up in your stuff? You didn't tell me that was that kind of show, Phil.
Yeah, it's Joe on Mary Jane on Joe is what the show is called, Phil.
Hilarious.
Yeah, man, I'm really happy to have you. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time.
Thank you.
You were on some Young Sheldon show.
Yes, I've been doing quite a bit of stuff
Yeah,
lately,
that's really
actually.
great.
Did Young Sheldon. I did a funny voice on that. A really good voice on that. And then I did NCIS Los Angeles, played the villain. Love playing bad guys.
Very cool.
Very nuanced, very super cool villain.
You were on Powerless last year.
I was on Powerless
and I was
last
disappointed with that show didn't get picked up because it got so much better as like the quality of that show was an absolute upward facing
Trajectory.
right arrow.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Great.
But they only gave him like 10 eps.
Yeah,
to
it started
make
out.
It happen.
It started out slow.
And I was playing the head of Star Labs.
Yeah.
So it would have been fun to play another iconic comic book figure attached to an iconic comic book institution.
Totally.
Which is what Star Labs is all about.
Yeah.
But that was another popular show that I really loved.
Yeah,
and what else have I been doing? I've been
well,
doing
your
so much
your
stuff
IMDb
lately.
page is huge as far as
No, it's
acting
good.
goes.
It's good. I'm
But you're
always
like an all around artist though. You
Yeah.
draw. You do
Martial arts.
Martial arts.
I do Wing Chun Kung Fu is my particular system.
Yeah.
But I've studied arts since I was 7 years old.
Yeah, well, when you were around that age, you got your start on Star Trek, the original series.
Exactly, the episode Miri.
Yeah.
With Kim Darby and Michael J. Pollard. What happened on that show, real quick, was that the producers wanted kids, but they didn't want too many actor kids. They had a couple lead actor kids in the episode that were like had lines and knew what they were doing, and then they wanted kids who weren't actor types but knew how to handle themselves on a set. So they hired a bunch of offspring from the people who were on shows on the Paramount lot, which is where they shot Star Trek. So we had Shatner's kids and the Landows, and then my sister and I were there, and it was a fun episode,
Yeah, and we should can't go any further without saying your father was Greg Morris
from the original Mission Impossible show.
Mission Impossible TV show.
I tell people my dad was on Mission Impossible. They go, Ving Rhames? Really? I didn't know he was that old.
Yeah, wow, he really doesn't age.
He
Like,
holds
crazy.
it well. Black don't crack, I guess.
He does not crack.
No, not Ving Rhames.
Your
Greg
dad
Morris.
was a pioneer for the African American actor.
He was. He was one of the first. He and Bill Cosby were the only two at the time that were on nationally known network shows.
Yeah.
Bill was in
both
I
like
Spy.
spy /
Yes, yeah.
like intrigue, like TV shows. That's weird.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I Spy played it real, but the kind of jokey, tongue-in-cheek stuff. Mission Impossible was real, no chasers, straight down the line. So yeah, it was a very interesting time to grow up.
Yeah, it's really neat. What do you just real quick? What do you think of the movies, the cruise movies? Like, do you feel they capture the spirit of the show?
I think they've gotten better. The movies have gotten better.
I think they've done some really great ones. But do they capture the spirit of like what your dad did? Do you think
I don't think so.
Okay.
But the reason why is there's too much emphasis on Tom Cruise. He's great. I mean, he's great. But the show, as what was constructed by Bruce Geller, was a team show.
Yeah.
And the equal parts. Like each member of the team had their thing they had to do, and then their what do I want to say? The danger, their threat level was high commensurately across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were the femme fatale, Barbara Bain, Lee Merriweather, any of those women.
Oh, Lee Merriweather.
Awesome. So many great, Linda
So
Day
good.
George, so many great women on that show. They all had their own area that was as valuable as any of the other members. When I watch the new Mission Impossible movies, nobody holds a candle to what Ethan Hunt is doing.
Yeah.
So it really is, to me, a kind of smash of MacGyver and Mission Impossible. So you're leaning on one guy who, when the chips are down, he can figure it out like with nothing. It's very MacGyver-ish to me. But then you have a team that supports him, and that's they're more his support than they are members of equal commensurate standing.
Yeah.
And in the first one, they did a no. You do a no, Tommy. Tommy, you did no. And that was, you made Phelps the bad guy. You made Phelps the bad guy.
And Phelps was
John Voight.
John Voight's character
In the
right?
movie.
Yeah, in the movie. And
Peter
who was he
Graves
on the show? He was Peter Graves on the show.
In the series.
Got it.
In our version of it and in my father's version of it.
Right.
And they did something else that was wrong that we did in our show that I thought was wrong when we did it in our show. And that was, they started saying that there was another branch of the IMF. There's a Benelux branch, and there's a Tunisia branch, and there's an Algerian branch. No. There's only 5 people in the world. 4 in the world.
It's impossible.
Who can do these things?
It's impossible.
There's no other person. There's no mirror group. There's no shadow organization. There's one organization that does this. There's one electronics expert that's the level of Greg Morris or Barney Collier or Grant Collier or now Ving Rhames. I forget his name in this show. One person in the world. There's not 4 that can mimic what he does. And that's what I see when I watch these movies. There's an IMF version that is the Tom Cruise crew, and then there's all these other kind of franchises out there. Wrong.
Yeah. I feel like half the time in those, I agree, those movies have absolutely gotten better.
Much better.
And they've been really, really good for the last few. Looking forward to the new one. But they do seem like every movie is about somehow they're getting disavowed. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's never about them actually just achieving a mission. It's, oh no, you've gone rogue.
They're so
You've
wrong
gone rogue again?
so often.
Wait, Tom Cruise gone rogue again? Wait,
Right.
Another time? Hold on a second. This just happened last year. Wait a minute.
Spoiler
Hold on.
alert.
Spoiler alert.
They're not.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Well, let's touch real quick on Jackie Childs. Let's jump forward a little
Thanks
bit.
for listening to my rant on Mission Impossible.
Oh, no, I love it. I love getting that insight because you were there. I mean, you were there from the inside.
grew up with it,
Yeah,
yeah.
you grew up with it. It's your dad's life's work. What, Jackie Childs, what's one thing about that people either haven't asked you a ton about or maybe it's just a really good memory that you haven't really talked about very much?
Well, my favorite memory about Jackie is when I got the show and I did the table read, just hilarious, right? And then I went to do my first scene, which was the first scene of the show. Well, Jerry, who was not the director at the time, came over to watch us rehearse. Now, you're doing this show for a week, so you don't want to try stuff, and you don't lock it in too soon because you got to tape it at the end of the week. You don't want to bore yourself, nor do you want to bore the people you're working with.
Yeah.
So here I'm trying different things and inflections and deliverances of lines, and Jerry says, "Hold on, wait." Now remember, he's not directing. Jumps out of his director's chair. Wait, hold on. Are you trying something different than you did at the reading? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be here for a while, and I'm just trying to look at the things that are different for the character. He goes, oh no, no. You do exactly what you did in my office to get this job, and you work on that all week. I'm like, got it. So
It's great that he told you that.
Yeah, no, that he would even step out of his comfort zone, I think, because I don't think he was very comfortable doing that, to say, no, this dude is so money.
Yeah.
Don't mess, don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And to have that come from Jerry Seinfeld, and that's only one. I've got so many stories
That's wonderful.
about Seinfeld
That's wonderful.
that were so fantastic.
I mean,
it's so good to me.
It's such a, you fell into that role, became that role so much when you first showed up on Smallville. I didn't recognize you.
Oh, Great.
I really didn't. It took me a second to go, oh, wait, that's the guy who, oh, geez, that's, okay.
Thank you.
I think I've told you this before, as Jackie, I mean, that was 25 years ago? 20 years ago or something like that?
It's, I don't really even know.
You played it as a much older man than you would have been at the time.
Yes.
Like you really played it older, but without, there's no prosthetic. It was acting.
Right.
It was acting, and it came through. So when I saw you in Smallville, I'm like, how can that be the same guy? It's 10 years later.
Yeah.
And I love Smallville. Smallville
Such
was
a good
groundbreaking.
show.
We're not where we're at today with everything on TV, with all the superhero stuff. And you're a big part of that.
Thank you.
You were one of the first outside of Superman's universe guys to come on the show.
Yeah.
Outside of his immediate super family.
Right.
And say, hey, there's more aliens out there. He's Clark Kent. This Clark Kent from the small town is part of a larger world.
Wake up.
Yeah.
Wake up.
We're
not alone.
Yeah. And that they had, I almost said had the courage to, but whatever. They cast a African-American man.
Yeah.
As John Jones, who traditionally was a white private eye, green Martian, but white private
traditionally,
eye.
Yeah.
And it was great because they said, no, there's no reason this guy has to be anything. Let's find the best actor for it.
I thought it was a really smart choice by the creators, Al Goff and Miles Miller. They were just those kinds of guys. And I think they did a really smart thing with the show as well, in that they didn't just gear it towards comic book aficionados, which we are, and we would have loved that.
Yeah.
But it would have made a much smaller audience for them. So they opened the audience up to kind of the Lex, Lana, Clark triangle, love triangle, which brought in a female audience, which really enjoyed the proceedings and made it a little more melodramatic and soapy, which was, I think, good in order to establish a larger, wider-ranging audience, or it might have gone the way of Powerless. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
So they gave them their head because
I think the best choice actually they made in kicking that show off was hiring Michael Rosenbaum.
He was fantastic.
He was awesome as Lex Luthor.
Okay, before I even got the show, I was flying up there to do a show called 3 Days or Day Sub. I can't remember. It's not even on now. But I'm sitting on the plane. This is why it's so memorable. I'm sitting on the plane next to this dude who's a live wire. I'm just a live wire, and I've got my trades. I'm looking at the trades, and he's just bending my ear. I don't know who this dude is. And he's like, man, can I use those trades? Can I look at your trades after? I'm like, sure. He's like, hey, what are you going up there for? I'm like, I'm going up for this show, and what are you doing? He goes, oh, man, I just got this pilot. I got this show. It's called Smallville, dude. I'm playing Lex Luthor. I'm driving a Porsche. He goes, I don't even know what I look like bald. He had a full head of hair.
Yeah.
And he just was a force of nature. That was my first introduction to Michael Rosenbaum. He goes, I'm up there, man, and I get to drive a Porsche. I mean, that was like the coolest thing in the whole thing.
Yeah, in the pilot, he runs Clark over with a Porsche.
With a Porsche, yeah. It was awesome. And so I met Michael then, and that was much, much in advance of when I did it. 6 years prior to me doing the show. Michael Rosenbaum is the business. Yes, I love him.
That's just great. Like, the Smallville will absolutely always have this real big place in my heart, like for real. Yeah. It first aired when I was living in a small condo in Chicago, or like a one-room studio apartment, and just like, not doing too great after college, kind of living on my own in the city, like kind of, and I was like, okay, they're doing a Superman show, and I would sit there that was the one thing I absolutely recorded on my VCR every week, and would be like, oh, I got to get home to Smallville. I don't know what else is going on in my life. Work may be bad, love life may be whatever, but I'd be like, I really think I like this Smallville show. Like, they're really treating Superman well, and they really treated it with respect, and I was nervous about that and all that.
He just got heat vision last week.
And I never missed an episode until they moved it to Friday nights. And it was later in the season. It was like season 8 or something. And that was actually the first one that I missed watching live in like 8 years.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I've broken my streak of Smallville. Like, I karmically, I need to support this.
I need a moment.
Yeah. So one of the reasons, Phil, why I wanted to have you on for this specific episode of G.I. Joe is it is called Pigskin Commandos. And the name is not misleading. There is a Joe on the team this season. This is the 3rd season, for your information. And his name is Captain Gridiron. And he is an ex-football player. And he is now on the Joe team. And he wears a football helmet.
They really went out there for the names, didn't they?
Oh, they really went out there. He uses a lot of football puns. Like, he's like, we got to punt Cobra back over the yard line. Right. Things like that. He throws football-shaped grenades. This is his feature episode. And it is it's one of the sillier ones that we use as an example of like this season not being the best season in the world of things that we love.
Right. Happy to comment on it.
Yeah, but now so we're talking all this acting, we're talking all this geek stuff, and why is this? Because you have a very close personal connection to the Green Bay Packers.
Yes, I do.
Let's tell me a little bit about that.
Well, my father, Greg Morris, from this we heard earlier from Mission Impossible, was roommates with a guy named Bob Jeter, who was a defensive back for the Green Bay Packers back in the 60s and the early 70s. And when he got drafted by the Packers, my father got Mission Impossible at the same time. And so that was like the first football player I ever met. First professional athlete I really ever met was my Uncle Bobby.
Yeah.
And he happened to be a member of the world champion Green Bay Packers.
That's crazy. What position did he play?
He played defensive back.
Defensive back,
with Herb Adderley and Willie Wood, as
nice.
You guys would know that. But
well, I'm a Bear fan, so I love this. I feel like we're bridging love.
It's
here.
all good. It's all, the Bears legacy. I love the Bears legacies. Vikings. Anyway,
Vikings are terrible.
NFC North, baby, black and blue division. Come on. But so that was my entree to the Green Bay Packers, and I've held love in my heart for them ever since. And even though I lived in L.A. the time the Rams were here, and I liked the Rams as well, when they moved, of course, I had the Packers. Yeah, I've had the Packers my whole life, and now I'm good friends with Donald Driver and Aaron Rodgers. Oh, the other guy, the really good guy, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And,
what's his name? He's kind of had a good arm.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
A lot of the players that are there now and have been there for the last few years, I've become very good friends with in my own right. So
that's great. And you go to a lot of like the fundraisers and things.
I do.
Like
I'm
that?
going back to Donald's event, Drive to Succeed. Driven to Succeed later this month.
Was that like a golf outing or something? Or
no, it's a big time gala, black tie event at the Pfister Hotel in Milwaukee.
Great.
And he's got huge sponsors like
that's
Kohler.
I've been to that hotel. That's a wonderful,
beautiful hotel.
It really is. Yeah.
So he has it there every year, and it's his 5th year this year, and we like to support good people.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So as a football fan, I wanted you on this episode.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
So I hope you'll appreciate it.
Football.
Well, what is your experience with G.I. Joe? You got all this geek stuff. Did you ever dabble in the world of G.I. Joe?
I'm an original Joe guy. I had the full life-size figure Joes.
The tall ones.
Oh yeah, and we would go to the drugstore and get clothes for them and accessories for them and. Yeah, they were our, Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
They were literally our Ken dolls. That was what we were all about. But we had the life size. We had the giant ones at the time. And then I kind of segued into comics afterwards.
Yeah. Because when the small ones, when this era came out,
I wasn't into that. Figure stuff.
Did you hold on because you're a collector, so you've got some stuff from the past.
Did
you ever hold on to any of the old Joes?
I don't have them now, so no, I have not held on to them.
So when you were about 10 years old, think about that. What cartoons were you watching? Like what was, or were you into it because like your dad was living and working in that world? Was that even
I was
like
totally
was entertainment?
Oh yeah, I stopped karate because of my Saturday morning cartoons.
Okay, so what were you watching?
I studied karate for like a year and a half. And I was like, look, Mighty Mouse is coming on, man. I don't remember what was going on then. I mean, I think it was a lot of Underdog and a lot of the Yogi Bear and Hanna-Barbera was huge. Obviously,
like the wacky races.
Yeah, that was a little bit later, but yeah, right in my Dick Dastardly and Muttley and Penelope Pitstop and those cats were rolling then. We had Johnny Quest and like Kimba the White Lion, and it was pretty. The Marvel cartoons were really very sketchy.
Well, they were the ones that were pulled from the actual comics themselves. They
like
would only move the mouth or an arm.
Yeah. But the original artwork,
I love
Kirby's artwork.
I've always had a deep love for those. I've got like bootleg DVDs. I want them
They're
to actually
awesome.
I don't understand why they don't have someone really go in and clean them up and release them. As
they'd be incredibly nostalgic. But I tell you that the audience now requires way more. I mean,
the audience would hate them.
Yes,
I'm saying for the collector. The audience would not enjoy them.
Right.
But that's how I first saw like the early issues of Avengers. I saw it in live action with Kirby artwork.
Stop action.
There was the one episode where it's the Kirby art. They're on a construction crane. And it's this big construction site from one of the early first 10 issues of Avengers. I can't remember which one. And I remember seeing that and then seeing a reprint or something of it and being like, wow, that's the same thing. Like, that's crazy.
Wow. Yeah. That's how they did it then. But those are kind of some of the animated stuff that was going on then. Well, I loved it. I loved the Jay Ward stuff. I loved Bullwinkle and Rocky.
Yes.
And Natasha.
We just
and
lost
Boris
June Foray last year.
June Foray just passed. Yeah.
And
we knew Paul Frees, who did Yeah, Boris. And
Did you have a chance to ever work with June, or did you know her
I
through
didn't
the
work with
voiceover
June.
circles?
She was one of the few people I did not work with. Did not have the honor to work with. I don't think she was doing much.
Yeah.
When I started to kick around in this.
Well, without any further ado, Phil, what do you say we get to watching some cartoons?
I want to see some stuff. I want to see some tank football.
Some tag football. Tank football.
Let's
let's
put it down.
Phil, where can we find you online? What's your website?
What am I? I'm at. You call me. You can hit me on Facebook, the Phil Morris fan page. I'm at Twitter at the real Phil Morris, at the Phil Morris, and I'm at the Jackie Childs. I do tweet.
You
as
do.
Jackie
You
Childs.
do tweet as Jackie
when
Childs?
I feel it. When I feel it. Oh, Jackie, he comes hard. He comes with it, the heat, man.
When you're following Jackie Childs, make sure you go out and follow me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Joe and Joe Pod. Send me an email to joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know what you think of the show. Let me know if you want to be a guest on the show. I love doing remote guests. And most of all, head on over to Patreon. Go to Patreon/JoeandJoePod. We've recently, as of this recording, it's recent, just started a Patreon for the show. So not only am I doing this show, which is going to be free for everybody,
wow,
we're also doing a comic book show called Joe and Joe Illustrated. And we're breaking down every issue of G.I. Joe, the comic book, page by page.
This is deep.
It is deep. We're talking about the history of it. We're talking about the artists. We're talking about the styles they use. We're talking about the page layouts. It's not a review. It's not me going, oh, hey, I think this issue is pretty good. No. It's going, what is in this issue?
Right.
How the hours they spent, let's dedicate an hour of our time to break down the multiple man hours that went into creating these pieces. Yes. And you guys go on there, and if you become a patron, you can listen to all of them. And we're going to be releasing about 1 out of every 5 to the live stream, so you guys can hear what you're missing.
Wow.
So go on, check it out. Thank you so much.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it with some Pigskin Commandos, and here we go. So
comes flooding back.
Yeah, it all comes flooding back. Now, this would have been, this era was old for me. Like this, I had aged out of G.I. Joe at the time. So this version of it was around from like 1990.
Yeah.
So this wasn't on your radar at all during the time that you were doing it. But do you know who any of these characters are? Like, are you familiar with this iteration of G.I. Joe at all?
Somewhat. I'm familiar with pretty much every iteration to a degree. Because Joe has been such a part of the popular idiom for so long.
Yeah. So Cobra Commander,
Destro.
Yeah. So you'll see a lot of those guys in here. There's a lot of Joes are actually all pretty new. You're lucky, though, this episode does feature Sergeant Slaughter, the wrestler.
The Sergeant Slaughter.
The Sergeant Slaughter. He is a main character in this episode, as is his sister.
Sister Slaughter.
Sister Slaughter.
Didn't they do an album back in the 70s?
No relation to Sister Sledge.
Get out of my head, man.
So we've got Pigskin Commandos. It's written by Roger Silfer, who's a comic book guy. And I want to go, Roger, what are you doing with this episode? That is Sergeant Slaughter. That is Sergeant Slaughter.
With all his hair.
Look at his house.
That's his sister?
That's his sister.
Sleeping in camouflage.
It looks like Brigitte Nielsen. First of all,
yeah,
absolutely model after Brigitte Nielsen. He has weaponry all over his house. He's got a sign from World War II saying Berlin 100 degrees.
I love that he wears sunglasses in his house and has sergeant stripes on his glass.
Yeah,
that he just broke.
His glassware is even striped sergeant.
His pajamas are camouflaged.
The detail on the photos in the background, those were military photos. Those were like military vehicles. That's the detail they put into Sergeant Slaughter's apartment. We've seen like 3 G.I. Joe living domiciles in this whole 100 episodes we've done. They've only shown where the Joes live like 3 times.
This is one of them.
And it's crazy. So Sergeant Slaughter hears there's a little bit of an earthquake, so something's going on below him. And, of course, shockingly enough, it's Cobra. Like, who would have thunk it, right?
Who knew?
So that is...
Range Viper.
That is a guy he's Range Viper. And he is, we talked a little bit about him on a couple episodes ago. We don't understand why he looks like a zombie. Because the animation may be a little weird, but that's actually his, like, supposed to be like his exposed brains.
Ooh.
But it's a mask. And he's like an outdoor specialist Viper. A lot of this doesn't make sense from a toy design's perspective or from a cartoon perspective. There's a whole lot here going on. But it's a Range Viper, and it's that other guy's Metalhead, and he's insane.
Oh, here we go. Here's the challenge.
This is great.
Your football team sucks.
Sergeant Slaughter remembered his football team. He insults him, and we immediately get a showdown. One of the things they do on this episode, which they don't normally do, is they're really giving these Vipers personalities. Normally, Vipers are the cannon fodder. Right. So there's normally a whole slew of them. But in this era, they kind of did more Vipers than they did personality guys. Like personality guys like a Cobra Commander or a Destro or a Major Blood.
Right.
Like the toy line was really consisting of all these nameless, faceless soldiers. So on the cartoon, they're kind of forced to give them these personalities where normally you wouldn't get that out of. There wouldn't be a head range Viper. You know?
Right. You would just be a Viper.
Right. But it's absolutely hilarious that this is all revolving around his skills as a football player in college.
I love the way they hide the mouth flaps with either a helmet, a mask, or they don't even bother to do them.
No. This was produced by DIC.
Right.
Do you know DIC as a company? Are they still around? Are they still making stuff?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So you know that they were called Do It Cheap. Like
I do not know that.
That was
I do now. Oh, is this Gridiron?
That is Captain Gridiron. Yes, it is.
Because he's got the face.
He's got the face
mask.
mask. Yes, he does.
Yeah. So they take umbrage with the insult that
they took umbrage.
Slaughter levels at them.
Yeah. So in order,
sounds like the Packers and the
really
Bears.
Does. Packers and Bears.
Yeah.
So they meet, and here we are at a football field, Phil, and we're playing a regular game of football. They're wearing their grenades and their guns,
armor.
And their armor
and bullets and
like
they're mortal enemies, but they're playing a game of football
for a man's life. By the way, I don't know that we've seen it yet, but you'll see Sergeant Slaughter is trussed up to a goalpost at this field right now, like he's being currently held captive by a goalpost. And they're playing for his life.
I don't ever think I've seen that formation before.
That's an awkward formation.
Is that the technical term?
Yeah,
the awkward formation.
That is that's Nagahai. He's the Cobra.
Yeah, but he's not. There's no 3 points of contact there when he's carrying that football.
There really isn't.
Not 3 points of contact. I'd strip that from him easy.
Totally. See, there he is. He's tied up to the.
Look at him. He's cheering, and they're just like, "Yeah, you don't. We'll be right back, Sarge."
Meanwhile, what really should be happening is the Joes should surround the place with snipers
and save Sergeant Slaughter. But here's the thing.
By the way, that would have been an illegal forward lateral.
An illegal forward lateral. You can't advance the ball that way.
Right.
But I do think Cobra Commander has a bomb football uniform.
It is. It would. That
the
would
NFL
hurt.
might want to look at that.
Yeah, I feel like that would be. Although he's probably has the best head protection in the game.
Do you think that a lot of the Cobra?
And look what just happened. They're playing on tanks
now. They're in tanks.
Now they're literally playing in tanks.
Is that another opportunity to sell the toy?
Oh, 100%.
Sell the toy.
It's 100% opportunity to sell the toy. But it's like first you have to buy into the fact that they would challenge him in a game for his life. But then you have to buy in that once they roll tanks onto the field, they wouldn't just say, "Okay, we're done here." Well,
I'm wondering what the turf is, because they're not tearing any of this turf up at all.
Well, in the 80s, it was that bad AstroTurf that hurt everyone, so they probably could drive a tank.
They probably could drive a tank.
It wasn't anything softer or
no,
good
it wasn't
for
this
anyone's
Nuvo
body.
Yeah. Oh, and is that Boomerang? Not Boomerang.
No. So that's Pathfinder. He's like a jungle tracker guy.
Right. He looks very Aussie, but he's not.
Well, his main weapon, I'm not kidding, is a weed whacker.
He's a weed whacker.
So he can weed whack stuff as he travels through the jungle. I don't see how that's an exciting accessory for a kid.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the Joes
trying to get them to do yard work.
Yeah,
of course.
And the Joes just happen to have a C-130 flying overhead,
and
drop
in the heavy
drop
ordnance.
in all their own tanks to play this game of tank football.
But they're not going to go with a better game plan. They're just getting bigger tanks.
But again, they're still playing the game.
Well, who's calling these plays? And I don't see a coach.
Right.
And I'm worried a little bit about the CTE issue.
I'm worried about the guy that was inside that Cobra tank that just got smashed. That's more than
run
CTE.
over. Yeah, that's probably a little bit more egregious.
That's crushed spine.
Now here we have actual bullets flying, and the guy's running with a football.
Yeah.
Trying to advance the ball.
It's almost like the opening scene in Last Boy Scout.
The Last Boy Scout, yes. Oh, what a perfect callback. Ooh, I love that he's driving over cars that are now on fire.
And you know what? The animation-wise, the old show, the previous iteration of this, they would have shown they would have animated little dudes running out of there to show you that they lived.
They lived.
They didn't animate that because it would have been too expensive. So as far as I'm concerned, all those guys are dead.
They're dead.
Based on the fiscal decisions of DIC.
Ooh, wow. That's heavy. That's a conscience killer.
Yeah,
right there.
So of course, Cobra being Cobra,
they cheat.
They cheat as if driving tanks onto the field wasn't cheating enough.
Now they're escaping by blowing a hole in the side of the stadium.
Yes.
Nice turn in a tank. I don't think tanks can turn like that. Physics are impossible.
Yeah. That's Metalhead. His machinery is voice activated, so he has to yell bang every time it fires, and it is obnoxious in a real way. Like he just screams.
Could you imagine
bang,
if Aaron Rodgers was like, throw, pass, handoff, lateral.
Well, we're going to commercial break, and we'll be right back. Today's Filecard features on the Cobra Stun Pilot, codenamed Motor Viper. The Motor Viper Corps tracks the type of individual who, without the benefit of an education and ambition, might have joined the Dreadnoks. The Cobra Recon and Perimeter Defense Forces are disciplined, efficient, and highly motivated in the manner of all elite groups. This is fairly surprising, seeing that the force seems to be comprised of the type that enjoy driving at high speeds and finds amusement in danger. Quote, as far as we can figure, the Motor Vipers don't get paid any better than the Ground Vipers or the Sea Vipers, nor do they receive any special privileges or benefits. They have their own distinctive uniform, but it's no flashier than the rest. Why then would a Cobra volunteer for such an obviously hazardous duty, unless it was the danger itself that appealed to him? That Filecard really does say a lot about the Motor Viper. It's funny, some of the other Vipers get cool names like Strato Viper and Alley Viper and Toxo Viper, etc. He gets Motor Viper. I just feel like they didn't really work very hard to do it. However, his action figure is actually really, really cool. There is a lot of detail on his figure. He is the guy, though. He's like the Jay Leno of Vipers. He wears like blue on blue on blue. He's all denimed up. He's got dark blue on a light blue undershirt. He's got a sweet silver mask that covers his whole face. He's got a lot of like hoses or straps that cut across him, multiple gun holsters. The figure is pretty cool. It actually looks like it could be a little bit of a Joe figure just because how blue it is. He came with the Cobra Stun. It was that black and red vehicle that had the flags waving off top. It only had 3 wheels, and the primary attraction to the toy itself was that it split into 2. So you'd be driving straight forward and it'd be shooting at you, and then the front 2 seats, there were 2 seats in the front with a gun on each side of it, they would split apart and open up, so now they could shoot in like a 180 degree kind of angle. I feel like it just opened you up to be hit more. However, Cobra Stun was very cool, and another neat thing about it is that it had wheel well covers, like hubcaps, that were Cobra logos. That was pretty sweet. The blue on his outfit does not match necessarily the red and black of the vehicle, but I don't mind it. This is one of those where I think that the figure is actually cooler than the vehicle. So Motor Viper, we salute you. Oh my God. As a Bear fan, I wish he would start yelling lateral, pass. Although, for the time, this game they just played might be more realistic than like Tecmo football at the time.
But Tecmo was so fun.
Oh, Tecmo was great.
So fun.
Tecmo was great.
If you use
not very realistic.
Bo
Jackson, Game Breaker. Absolutely.
Okay, now we're on the water.
So now we're off the football tip, and we're dealing.
Who won the game? Don't know. Did anybody score?
Yeah, we saw a couple touchdowns being scored. There was a scoreboard.
I'll give it to the Joes.
I didn't catch. I'm gonna say since the Joes were the second team to bring the tanks out, they win because the first team would have been disqualified.
True.
I feel like that's a flag situation.
We check with the league office on that.
Yeah, and it's a commentary there. It's a moment for comedy. They should have had referees. Because they could have had referees, at least for no other reason than just to throw their hands up in the air and be like, "This is too crazy. I'm out of here.
I gotta go."
They should have absolutely had referees.
Well, referees in flak jackets.
Oh, that would have been hilarious.
In camouflage.
That would have been hilarious.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I just love the coordination of all of their equipment. I love that it changes into an amphibious vehicle right away.
That's the one thing this show does do really well, regardless, how much we poke fun at the story and the, whatever. Mm-hmm. They show the toy being used, being the playedic aspect of it. They show that really well. highlight all the various missiles. Like I'm sure those toys had those missiles in those places.
Oh, there's
like
no
that.
doubt about it.
Yeah, like they wanted kids to go and hit the store. And the other thing they do on this is they also really only use the same for this season. They're only using like the same 8 GI Joe guys because those were the 8 or 10 or so that were on the stands at the time.
Got it.
Because like they're not using older Joes. They have at this point there's probably 25, 30 characters they could use for all this stuff
Easily.
And they never do. Every episode is the same 6 or 8 dudes.
So they're putting Slaughter in a taxi. Do you think anybody bought the taxi toy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want that
Yeah,
G.I. Joe taxi.
And it came with Tony Danza.
I'd get the limo.
Yeah.
Check the limo.
That came with an orangutan driving it. Also with a Tony Danza. Both those vehicles came with a different Tony Danza.
So G.I. Joe has comprehensively handled all of Tony Danza's career.
Yes, pretty much.
One season of cartoons.
Yeah. And at the end of the episode, Mona from Who's the Boss shows up, and you could get the custom made G.I. Joe Mona doll. Yeah,
classic.
Absolutely.
Now, who was it that they just picked up in the limo? Who's that?
So that's Lady J.
Yes, I know Lady J.
J.
Sorry,
and she's no. It's okay. She is one of the very few female voices they even use on this show. This is the other thing they did. Like they had like 3 dudes do the voices, and that's it. Like there's been episodes where they've drawn women, and there's no dialogue for them. Like women who are important women, like Baroness.
So how many people did voices on this particular cartoon?
A lot less than did on the previous iteration. There's like this episode maybe 4 or 5. Like they would do multiple ones, but in the previous Sunbow ones, the ones before DSC took over, you had a huge roster of dudes. Like they would bring in a guy just for his one voice, and they'd have him do side voices too. But it was if you were Hawk, you were Hawk. You were Hawk and this guy. You were Flint. You were Duke. You were So that's also one of the side effects of this show.
Maybe we can find copper there.
The only reason they bring her on this show is for one of the worst endings to a cartoon that I've seen that has nothing to do with the rest of the tone of the cartoon. And we're going to get there. I don't want to spoil it for us. But
Yes,
there's a reason.
please don't.
There's a reason why just in the middle of nowhere
She
you
shows
have
up.
Lady J in a limo going out on the town, dressed of course in her full battle gear.
Sure.
Because as one does.
That's her formal wear.
Yeah, as one does.
But see, the thing about all this, the toys are so fantastic. I mean, the planes and the jets and all that. It makes me a kid again. It's like, I want that jet. Mm-hmm. I want those toys.
I want that limo.
I do want that limo.
I tried finding a limo.
I'd
toy.
want Lady J. Maybe not as a child, but
no,
now.
she's pretty great.
Yeah.
She's pretty great. I tried finding a limo toy
And
a
Baroness.
few years
Woo!
back. Hard to
Come on
find.
now.
Baroness. I mean, that leather outfit. Stop it.
Can't beat it.
Stop it. So, Phil, one of the things that we like to do on this show that I'll give you a little time to think about it if you want, is we like to ask our guests, if you could be a member of the Joe or Cobra squad, what would you be? Would you be a Joe or a Cobra? What would your specialty be? And let's come up with a code name for you.
Oh.
So, for example, I would be a Joe. I'm a heavy machine gunner. My name would be Deep Dish. And I'd come with a pizza as an accessory on the toy. And Rebecca is Toileteel, the Cobra cleaning lady.
Follow me. I'll have you out of danger in a minute.
Right. What's her weapon of choice?
She just comes with like a plunger,
mops.
cleaning supplies. Yeah, a
Plunger.
bucket, like things like that, like a babushka.
Uranium-soaked mop.
Yeah, exactly. We've got things like the Cobra, the special assistant to Cobra Commander. One of my friends who is like a CEO, he's the CE Joe. So typically, our guests like to get their specialty, something to do with how they relate in real life. You know, so writers. I've had writer friends of mine. They're the Cobra speech writers. And they come up with a fun name for them. So think about that.
I will
Think
give
about
it
that.
some thought while I stay wrapped here on this episode of Joe.
So
They really go crazy with it. I mean, they just went from playing football to full on war.
Yes.
In Central Park.
In Central Park, no less. That's the other part of this. This is all happening right in the heart of everything in
New York City.
Yeah. And that horse, by the way, is furiously fast. I do love that Sergeant Slaughter is still wrapped up. He's not been released.
Hasn't been released.
Hasn't been released.
And you think that those blinders on the horse really keep them kind of focused on not the explosions?
Not the explosions, yeah.
And not freaking out
Yeah.
completely?
Don't worry about this Fang
And here we go.
helicopter.
We're going to go down 42nd Street subway.
Have you spent a lot of time in New York?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, that'd be very difficult to ride a horse down those steps on 42nd Street. And not that you wouldn't see it. I'm not saying that you wouldn't see it.
It's true.
I'm just saying that it's difficult to do.
And now we're in the middle of Times Square.
Times Square.
Yeah, it's a good looking Times Square.
Incredibly clean and zero civilians.
Yes, yeah. Especially at this. Well, this would have been 90, so it actually would have been cleaned up by then.
Would it?
Or it was on the verge
of
being cleaned
Rudy
up.
is just cleaning it up.
Yeah,
but
so he gets,
and they probably were alerted to the fact that there was a Cobra attack.
So maybe they cleaned it
going
out.
on.
Maybe they did an evac.
They disseminated information to the public.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Sergeant Slaughter still wrapped up.
Now, did he do the voice, Sergeant Slaughter?
He did.
Get out.
He did. That's actually Sergeant Slaughter. He had to quit the WWF to do this because the WWF didn't want to let him license himself, and he said, "No, I want to do this."
Then you got to quit.
And they said, "Well," so he left the WWF for a time being in order to do this. We're going to go to commercial and be right back. Hey, listeners, I'm not sure if you've heard the news, but Joe and Joe has started a Patreon, and I'm inviting you along for the ride. Go to patreon.com/JoeandJoePod and check out my page. Right now, there are 2 opportunities for you to help support the show. You can choose to be a grunt or a viper. Grunts get access to all the Joe and Joe episodes and early access to new episodes as they're created. Vipers get all that and access to my all-new spin-off podcast, Joe and Joe Illustrated, where I will be breaking down every single issue of the G.I. Joe comic books, page by page, in the deepest dive you'll ever hear on G.I. Joe. So go to patreon.com/JoeandJoePod and see what's happening over at the Fort Wadsworth Motor Pool. We'll see you there. And I think we talked briefly about this on a couple episodes ago. I do think I agree that it was the best. It was a great career move for him because he became known as something special to an entirely different group of fans. Like he had the wrestling, but now for this whole subset of kids, it was always Sergeant Slaughter
from G.I. Joe.
Yeah, from G.I. Joe, and he was then special because they did wrestling dolls because they never did like a Sergeant Slaughter wrestling doll because his license went to G.I. Joe. But now he was the only wrestler that had a G.I. Joe guy until years later they did a Rowdy one, but like in the 2000s, like as a special. So here we are at the Statue of Liberty.
Who defied Cobra?
They're gonna make an example of him.
Because the sergeant
this is
are about to try
a crazy stunt, and the fact. Okay, see the Statue of
Liberty play. Gridiron. He's got the puns.
He's got the puns. He really's got the puns.
Oh, they really reached for the writing, didn't they? So they're going to pull the torch off the Statue of Liberty and smash it into.
And if we think about what it's being, that hook was originally hooked to Sergeant Slaughter, so that plane would have been tugging on Sergeant Slaughter for a brief period of time. That could not have felt good.
But it's Sergeant Slaughter. The man is so tough.
He is so tough. That is very true. Lady Liberty's arm's about to break off. Oh, the clock's running out again. More football puns. By the way, Gridiron showed severe hand grip strength.
Oh, that's
amazing.
That's Ninja Warrior gripping.
It really is. It really is. And look, he threw a grenade like a football because his toy had grenade-shaped footballs.
Couldn't see that coming. Grenades. Touchdown.
Yeah. That kind of wrote itself. Oh, and it's just. Oh, wait. You think that wouldn't tear the arm down? Just a 2-ton helicopter dangling from it. That's not going to rip the arm off.
And he's got to weigh at least 2 bills. I mean, that's
come on.
That's a load.
It is a funny sight, though. It is a funny sight. Have you ever been up in the Statue of Liberty?
I have not done the Statue of Liberty Staten Island thing.
I haven't either. We're getting to New York. We're going to be out in New York in a little bit. And actually, it's one of the things I'm thinking I might want to do.
That's one of the few things I have not done.
Yeah.
Is the Stat of Liberty. It's well worth it. I can't wait to see it, actually.
Yeah, I do. One of my early memories, actually around the time I was getting into G.I. Joe. Oh, look at that, the fireworks display.
Oh, it's like, so they kind of camouflage it as a fireworks display.
And you know what? This actually mirrors a little bit the opening of the G.I. Joe animated movie from 1989, which all took place. It's an amazing. If you've never seen it, it's gorgeous.
Okay.
It's really expensively animated, and it's a fight on the Statue of Liberty, and it is the camera angles are moving everywhere. The best animation on a cartoon you'll see in forever.
Okay,
and it's all around the Statue of Liberty. So that's a little callback right there. Nope. There's
Oh, look! Slaughter's finally free, and he's pulling Viper and the dude with him.
It's great because the whole episode he was just used as a tool, and now he's like, I'm free. I'm busting some heads.
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of this episode without busting some heads.
You ain't doing me like that. You're getting away with it.
Yeah. So
That's
now,
very Jay Silverheels, isn't it?
It is. I was saying it looks. If they did a live action, it would have been Lou Diamond Phillips.
Lou Diamond,
Right?
Yes.
Like he's got a Lou Diamond thing going on.
He does.
Right? Yeah. His name, by the way, is Bullhorn. He's the intervention specialist. So when there's a hostage, his toy literally came with a bullhorn, and he'd be like, "Hey guys, get off the ledge.
You don't want to do this.
Yeah, you don't want to jump.
Your life is more valuable than you think."
And look at this. This is the dumbest ending.
Is that his costume?
It is his costume with a weird cape. They're at a Club 54, a Studio 54 club. It's Studio 55. He's trying to get in. It's the dumbest ending to anything. Here's what it makes me think. Their time was short, and that they needed to add like 30 seconds of show to hit the time because it's got nothing to do with the rest of the show.
Oh, and here's Lady J.
You finally get Lady J. She's out on the town with Captain Gritter, and by the way, her boyfriend Flint. What's up? Where's Flint? Because that's her man.
She's double dipping.
Yeah, she's double dipping. And Sergeant Slaughter is out with his husky sister.
That's not awkward.
Yeah. So like this whole ending is wackadoo.
What?
Like this Club 55, Studio 55, that didn't exist in the rest of the show, had nothing to do with anything that went on. Cobra Commander wants to get into a nightclub. Like what is that? Like
Cobras, they have to have a good time too. I mean, they need good downtime. That's what they're doing.
But that I will never not be convinced that they put it together, they wrote the show, they did all the recording, whatever, and for some reason they said, hey, we're 30 seconds short. We need to tack an ending on there. I will never not be convinced that that's the case because that's crazy. That's a crazy ending to a show about playing a football game, Phil. It's crazy. So that
is a very impressive episode, my friend.
It is something, right?
There's a lot going on there. There's like it was very American because it had the American football.
Yeah.
It would have been weirder if they were playing soccer.
Yeah. Or hockey.
But that's very indicative of an American pastime, and that they would find a way to use it in G.I. Joe. Stunning.
Yeah, stunning.
Stunning
probably the appropriate word.
Stultifying is the word.
So have you given any thought to if you could be a member of the team? What would your? We'll start with your specialty, and then we'll code name you after that, unless you got one.
My specialty would be hand-to-hand combat because I'm a martial artist.
Right.
My name would be Handle It.
Handle It. I like it. Are you a Joe or a Cobra?
I'm a Joe for sure.
Okay.
I gotta be a Joe. I can't be a Cobra because I tell you why. Because I want to be the first Joe that turns the Baroness.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
I'm gonna bring her onto our side.
That would be good.
Because
let's make sure your wife doesn't hear this.
Well, I'm a cartoon character.
Yeah, you're gonna handle it.
He gonna handle it.
I love it, man. And Joes have a rich history of martial artists. Quick kick, snake eyes.
See?
Yeah.
I'm one of the brothers. I'm one of them.
Like Budo, and there's a ninja force.
I didn't want to go too ethnic with it, I was going to think of Buddhist kick. No, handle it.
Yeah.
He's a hand-to-hand guy.
Yeah,
He doesn't have any weapons.
Yeah.
Just an empty hand guy.
I love it. I love it. Hey, you were in Black Dynamite. Any word on that? Any word on that? Are they gearing up?
Yeah,
Are they doing it?
It's going to be a Western, actually.
A Western?
It's called Outlaw Johnny Black.
Oh, love it. Love it. Are you going to be part of it?
I will be a part of it.
I hope so.
Those guys are so cool, man.
I can't wait, man. So, Phil, thanks again for being on the show.
What a unique experience,
Yeah,
Joe.
this is so much fun, listeners. I hope you enjoyed it half as much as I did, because then I know you're having a good day. So, for Phil Morris, I'm Joe Slepsky, and now you, Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.